All light workers are light beings. What? Explain.
So there are other beings who are not light workers who are working to establish a light paradigm on Earth.
Oh. Like who?
Dark beings?
Why would I do that?
Welcome to WooForThought.
It's at Inelia.substack.com in case
Yes.
you want to check it out.
It's all about essays. If you like long reads and you're a lecturian like us and a more in-depth exploration of things,
And go to the WooForThought.
because those are essays, not articles.
Yes. Articles, yeah.
Articles are cool.
Articles are nice when you're like, I want to get it over and in, like a page maybe. Half a page sometimes. Occasionally two.
Occasionally.
Essays, we go like 5, 7, 8.
Yeah, some essays are quite long. This one's a short one.
Yeah, because it's, blinded by the dark.
It's only 6 pages.
6 pages. So obviously we're not going to read the whole thing. We'll leave that to you for the reading the whole thing. But
Yes.
I think what's going to be interesting is to have a little chat about some of the topics inside, like light workers.
Mm-hmm.
There's a light worker and there's a light being. Those are different words.
Do you know the
In my
difference?
mind, I know that I assume walking down the street like dun, 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 light worker, okay, oh, light being, light worker, light being. They seemed like synonymous, like that
A lot of
term and
people
that
use
word.
it. Yeah, a lot of people use it synonymously actually for a light being and a light worker, but they're very different things.
Yeah, so I know you get into depth a little bit in it, but I kind of like to clear it up now, if it's all right.
Sure.
So we'll just start with a few assumptive statements.
Okay.
And you can say false. And then you
Okay.
can explain, okay. All light workers are light beings. What? Explain.
So there are other beings who are not light workers who are working to establish a light paradigm on Earth.
Oh. Like who?
Dark beings?
Why would I do that?
They want out of here.
Oh, so if they give us a place to go, then we'll
No.
leave them alone?
If according to them, if the light succeeds, then they're free to go.
Go wild.
Just go, leave.
Otherwise they're stuck.
Uh-huh.
So it's a way to
Leave here.
leave. Okay.
Yeah.
So not all light workers are light beings.
No.
Are there other things than light beings and dark beings? Is there other things too?
Yeah, there's beings who are not light or dark. So we have to, that's when you have to define, dark being would be one that base energy and feeds off fear, anger, suffering, pain, power over others, and, very base, degraded things.
So that's a dark being or a dark source?
Dark being because they feed off it. That's what they need to survive.
So is a dark being by definition from a dark source universe?
Yes.
And a light being is by definition from a light sourced universe?
Yes, which this universe is actually a light sourced universe.
So when we say light sourced, what does that literally mean?
It means that their base energies and what energizes them is love, happiness, creativity, equality in treatment, variety, and the exploration of the universe without subduing the universe.
Right, so if a light being wanted to go have an adventure on the beach, there might be things like chocolate flowers plopping up out of the sand to be tasted.
Yeah.
And that might be one of the experiences. And there might be another one where you're walking in down to the water and a wave comes in and the wave picks you up and puts you on top of maybe the log. And on the log is a chair, a cushy couch chair.
Yeah.
And you continue walking down the beach and the sand's getting all over your feet. And it's getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And finally you say like, I just can't do it anymore. And you sit down, and when you sit down into the beach, it goes into this little chair, and a couple of sand handles come up. And then you could go like this, and the whole sun moves over there, and then moves over there, and moves over there, and it goes up, and it goes down a little bit. You can have sunset, you can have sunrise, sunset, sunrise, that kind of a thing.
Sure, why not?
That's light.
That would be a light worker's, a light
Light being's
dream.
I like that's a
Light
day on the
being,
beach.
yeah.
A day on the beach for a light being. It could include those kind of things. And if there's a dark being,
there'd be a war there and a battle.
They're going to the beach. A dark being, so it might be Normandy.
So there'll be people there they can enslave, make them work for them. Some people they can torture and rape, all these type of things. Yeah. Maybe destroy it and giggle. Yeah.
Blow up a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Have giant explosions.
Yeah.
Where body parts go flying.
Yeah, and pee or poop and
Puke,
vomit in front of the camera, that type of thing.
So that's a dark being's trip to the beach.
Yes.
So it's a light dark trip to the beach.
Could be either.
Light dark universe. Kind of like have a little bit of either or.
Yes.
Sometimes leaning towards one or leaning towards the other.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I mean that's pretty graphically obvious, right? They're radically completely different. So I know it's common enough. There's light beings who think, oh my gosh, am I a dark being?
Yeah.
So oftentimes you'll ask them a question, right?
Yes. I say, how many people here in this room did you want to enslave, torture, kill, pull their nails out and stuff like that?
Oh, has any of them ever said
no?
Yes, some
No.
no. I mean, it's like literally that obvious, right?
It's not complicated and it's not theoretical. It's actual things that people do.
So is it possible for a light
Being to be a dark worker?
To be a dark worker?
Yes.
Oh. Do they do it on purpose?
Yes.
Oh.
A lot of them. There's a lot on Earth right now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Do they want to pull the nails out of kittens?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And they're light beings?
Yeah.
What's wrong with them?
They're playing dark games.
Oh. And are there dark beings who want to like pet kittens instead of pull their nails out?
Yeah.
What's wrong with them?
They definitely think there's something wrong with, a world that has kittens. So they want out of there.
All right, so light beings and dark beings have a source of light or a source of dark.
Yeah.
And they go along with their sourceness, but they also, in a light dark world like we're in right now, right? They also are dabbling in each other's games to some degree, but with different base motivation, right? So a dark being's dalliance in the light is mostly to conquer it.
Yes.
And a light being's dalliance in the dark is mostly to subdue it or mostly
save them.
Save it? Save them.
Save them.
Save the kittens whose nails are getting pulled out.
No, save the bad guys who are feeling
Save the bad guys who are pulling the kittens' nails out.
Yes. Because obviously something really bad happened to them, right? Otherwise they wouldn't do that. So they're going to put them in a hospital and treat them with psychology and
Fix them?
fix them.
If they love them enough?
Hmm?
If they love them enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Does it work?
No.
It's a little like that one story I think you told. Those dark beings found this universe full of fluffy white bunnies. And the bunny said, come on here and have a game with us. And it's like, okay, sounds great. And there was a bunny slaughter.
I don't remember telling that story, but it's a great story.
It's not a great story. The bunnies got slaughtered.
Yes.
Yeah. So, in other words, they play with different rules and different engagement and different ideas and different thoughts. And in some ways, they're a little compatible. In other ways, they're like taking advantage of the others, I guess, naivete to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's a somewhat compatible dark light universe because you can go to the beach and your feet can fill up with sand and you can plop down on the sand, and instead of a nice chair with handles to steer the sun up and down and all around, it's like there's a hard pokey rock or a stick that you fall on and cut yourself. So
yeah, that's when you're running a program of I'm gonna have a bad day at the beach.
Day at the beach.
Yeah.
So you can have it. You couldn't in a light universe. You wouldn't have that.
No.
Nobody would want to.
No.
Okay. So light worker works to
remove darkness from this universe.
And a dark worker works to
conquer light and make it dark in this universe.
And light beings and dark beings are both playing both roles. It isn't like completely relevant, but there's probably more light beings, I guess, would be playing light work.
Oh,
light
absolutely, yeah. Well,
like
I would say
less
99.9%, yeah.
Okay, so we're basically saying that things are possible. There can be dark beings working to be a light worker, and there could be light beings working to be a dark worker, but it's not like the norm.
Not the norm, no.
Right. So specifically here, Earth, right now, I guess from, let's say, 1920 to 2020, like the last 100 years or so, I heard through the grapevine, I think you told me, and I've heard it from others too, that a call went out to the universe, let's say, for light beings to incarnate on Earth to help bring about a shift in experience from dark to light. Something along those words.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Did you say that before?
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
Okay. So in the answer, it came out that all these light beings came to incarnate and tried to bring about, like, I think they had didn't they have flower power and, like, it's age of Aquarius and all those kind of things. And they were like aiming for
in
that,
the
right?
60s, yeah.
60s.
50s and 60s.
And in the 20s and
70s.
30s, they had that like giant depression thing. And then they had a world war to end all wars, so they would never have war again, all kinds of things, and bring about a new golden age. And they did a lot of, it's like there were golden ages and there were tremendously big, huge D-Day traumas, right? Yeah. And in the hippie things they want a new world, and then drugs and rock and roll showed up. So kind of they got a little bit hijacked, I guess, right?
In the 60s, the hijack was really interesting because not only did they introduce the drugs and alcohol and sex, degraded sex, not natural sex, they also brought in the I, me, and myself, the egoic injection. So all of these organizations that were working for our enlightenment suddenly became my enlightenment, my growth, and that became like divide and conquer.
Separation. The ultimate in separation is the,
I still meet people who were young fellows and girls and ladies in the 60s and went through that hippie thing and remember the time of we will ascend into enlightenment.
Right.
And then when you say, well, what happened? It says, I don't know. It just collapsed. Like all of these organizations suddenly collapsed and it was all about my thing, And there's a lot of them are still in the my thing, my enlightenment and my growth. And they don't work nicely with others. So they're still stuck there. And some others don't. Some others step right out of it. They went into the I, me, and myself and then figured it out or heard some one of my teachings that said, if you're stuck in your own personal thing, then this is what happened. You got hijacked. They went, oh! And they stepped out of it and are working for our enlightenment.
Yeah, that's a different perspective, of course. When you shift out of the me and mine and into our, but the our inclusives of the me, not the
absolutely.
our exclusives of the me. The our of exclusives of the me is more like me because you're only do the exclusives for yourself anyways.
Do it for they.
You're separate from the...
Yeah.
Right. I think there were probably 1,001 ways to be blinded by the dark in this sense. 1,001 ways to become... I've got a great idea, and then it gets hijacked by, why is that?
Hijacked by
Yeah, like
what?
Drugs are great. Maybe we should do drugs. That'd be a great part of this flower thing. And sex, too, with everybody. We'll have big, huge, giant puddles of sex. That'd be awesome. With drugs.
Yeah.
And how about some music to go with it?
And alcohol, a lot of alcohol.
Well, alcohol, you gotta wash those drugs down with something. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
but it didn't end up fine.
No.
So it's like that's the
What was that? Nice.
that was a nice ding. That was like the mission. Like I think you wrote it here. The mission of a light worker.
Uh-huh.
A light worker is a person who was born or reborn, obviously, into a human existence on what we know of as Earth during this time, about 1920s to present, who embodies high frequency energy and generates high frequency experiences for themselves and others.
Yes.
So how does that's a pretty clear mission. How does that get hijacked into, instead of generating high frequency experiences or high frequency energy, into degraded low frequency power or other engagements and selfishness, and I mean myselfness? How does it get hijacked?
I think that...
How do you get blinded by the dark? I think that's the question.
There's a whole bunch of ways. But the examples you were talking about, the path to enlightenment or like light that was hijacked in the 60s, it was hijackable because it wasn't well defined. People didn't have a strong why, but also did not understand the nature of a light experience. Right. So a lot of it came in through, I'm going to meditate for 20 hours a day for 5 years, and then I will be enlightened. But nobody knew what that meant. What did enlighten mean, right? Enlightenment. And a lot of people went to India and sat with gurus and
gods.
Brahmas, gods and all these things and temples to reach that state of enlightenment.
And, they did report having these blissful, ecstatic oneness experiences, right? It's not like they didn't have those experiences.
But that's the thing. You already equated those experiences with enlightenment, which is a false teaching.
If only there was a enlightenment class that's explored these things in depth. Oh, wait a minute. There is one. We did one of those, remember?
We did.
So if you're curious about enlightenment, I highly suggest you give that course a look over.
Yeah.
I think it's a couple hours, and it can save you a few lifetimes worth of spinning your wheels.
It's like I used to think, well, a lot of people, their higher selves are driving their life.
Yep.
And they came in as a light worker, so eventually they will get back on track and be fine.
Figure it out.
But as I got older, I started meeting people and then they would die.
Yeah.
Right? Through different causes. And then I would visit with them, and their experience of it was, oops. Oops, I shouldn't have done that.
That was a mistake.
And I'm like, dang it. So all the airy-fairy thoughts that I might have had of
their higher self
chose it, and their higher self knows better, and they did this for a good reason, went flying out the window when I met these people after they died.
Because it
wasn't
true.
It wasn't true. So it's like, then it became a condition of, how do I facilitate people realizing that they're oopsing before they die, right? So they can actually do and accomplish what they came here to do. And one of them is this Blinded by the Dark article, right?
Yeah.
It's like it teaches ways in which people are blinded. And let me see, I have a little list. Let me just scroll down. Some of the sentences that people use to validate darkness. And when I say darkness, I don't mean a dark room. I mean torture. I mean abuse, right? I mean beating people up and like starving people, war, horrible experiences. That's what I'm talking about, right? Some of the sentences is, without darkness, there cannot be light. another word that I've heard there is like there has to be contrast. And whenever I hear those, I know those are dark workers pretending to be light workers.
It's also light workers who got blinded by the dark.
Yes. Which makes them dark workers. But yeah, not consciously often. In that case, a lot of them are unconsciously working for the dark. They're consciously dark workers thinking they're light workers and doing great things on Earth. But they're not. Because actually, if you bring a light into a dark room, what happens?
There isn't
darkness
dark
anymore.
No.
Yeah.
There's no contrast.
No.
There's just light.
Yeah. And with light, you can see all the details of all the colors. Guess what you can see with a dark room? Not very much at all.
Yeah, in
Maybe
other
a few
words,
shadows.
right. You kind of...
Okay, so another one is pain and suffering makes us better people.
Well, this one is like an adaptation of the challenges can make us stronger, like exercise.
Yeah.
It's challenging to lift these weights, and at the end of lifting, hey, these weights ain't so hard.
I have met
climbing that hill behind our house here.
I have met thousands of light workers who have gone through pain and suffering.
Yes.
Thousands of them.
Are they much better for it?
When I look at them and they tell me about their pain and suffering, or even I see it, I see scars, I see disability. I see them
programs
like
that are
20% of their light that they could have been.
You see programs that they got from that pain and suffering, and traumas that are glommed on so hard and tight they can't like barely function through them. Yeah.
Disabled. Yeah. That's what pain and suffering does to people. And if you don't believe that, the next time you see a baby, beat it up.
Don't do that, honey.
Why?
That kind of pain and suffering doesn't make her better.
Well, this is the kind of pain and suffering people are talking about.
Well, that's the kind of pain and suffering they're trying to justify in their own life.
Exactly. Because what's going to happen to that baby is going to become traumatized and it's going to stop, growing. It's going to stop.
It's going to connect.
Flourishing.
The connection
to their spirit's going to be gone.
Don't do that. You're going to get beat. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that'll make you stronger.
No, it doesn't. It makes you weak.
Makes you weak.
Yeah. So no, you're not going to beat up that baby, are you? Because you know innately that pain and suffering hurts and disables people and makes them a shadow of what they could have been. You know this innately. You know this inside of yourself. You would never do that. Right? You would never beat up a baby or a kitten. Right? You would never do that. Because you know innately that disables and hurts that child or that kitten, puppy, whatever. You know it. So next time some people, you think that you're a better person because you suffered, think about that. Actually, you're disabled.
I hear people say things like, my parents were really hard on me and they beat the crap out of me when I misbehaved. And so now I'm well behaved. And the kids nowadays, they don't get beat, so they're assholes. They just don't listen. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
And in the Bible, doesn't it say something about spare the rod, ruin the child, something like that?
Well, we're not going to talk about religion.
Come on now.
It also tells you that you should enslave your wife.
Well,
beat her up.
There's a lot of things in there that are questionable. We can pick the ones that we want to pick on.
You should eliminate whole
villages and towns
and cities and countries.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a death cult. Mm-hmm. Hiding in the light.
Yeah.
Anyways, so how about that part? Discipline. Yeah, what's the word? I don't know about you, when I was a kid, my mom broke the wooden spoon over my butt.
Yeah.
Did it make me a better child? Well, it made me better at not getting caught. I'll tell you that for sure.
Your mom did not have a good...
the best
training track record with their children.
Yes, but it does. It's one of those.
What
things,
I see,
right?
like I said, when I see that situation, I see you scarred. I see you disabled. I see you that you're not the better man that you could have been today because of those situations when you were little.
Totally agree. But some other people would look at that and say, see, he turned out okay and he got beat up.
Yeah, but you could have been better. You would have been
1,000
better.
times better and probably
Yeah.
way sooner.
Yeah.
Probably would have been a lot of less alcohol between then and
Yes,
now.
exactly. Yeah.
Massively amount less.
Massive amounts less. Yeah.
Yeah. So it isn't true. Pain and suffering don't actually make you better people. I mean, there are whole religions based
Even
on
to
suffering.
think about that, to me, is so utterly ridiculous. But it's innate. I mean, it's like ingrained in people, right? So many light workers believe this. They do believe it. But when we talk about this, one of the things that I always like to remind people of is don't go into the victim-aggressor cycle when you're thinking about these things. It's very easy to think, oh my God, look at all that's been done to us. Look at us all being done to those beautiful light beam babies that came into the world with eyes wide open, their hearts wide open, shining so brightly. And then they get tortured and abused and beaten, broken, right? And I've seen a lot of that. And it's like, no, don't think about victims here. But if you perceived that or if you saw that as a kid, I've seen it. I've been part of that. And I've seen and I've turned around and I said, no, don't do that. Don't to the kid. Don't be a victim. You can have better. You can say no. I've been in a room with children who are being abused and beaten. And when it was my turn, I turned around, looked deep into that person's eyes, those adults, and said, no. Says, well, it's like, if you don't do X, Y, Z, you're going to get beat. No. And the shock for me as a kid was that they threatened and they threatened, right? And other kids cried and said, do it. And I said, nope. I said, well, you're going to die. Fine. But it's not going to happen. And they didn't. And that was weird. It didn't happen. It was like some sort of energy just flittered out. And another example was my mom and dad used to beat the crap out of us too, right? Well, my sister and my brother. I was the youngest. And my brother would get beaten every single day, and my sister also, by either my dad or my mom. My brother because he refused to do schoolwork. And my sister's because half the stuff she did was wrong, right? And then I remember I did something wrong. And my dad took out his belt like he would beat up my brother with his belt, nasty belt. And I just looked at him. I looked up at him, right? I was tiny, big eyes, and I just looked up at him. He had this belt, right? And he started shaking because he was so mad he was going to just beat me like I used to do my brother when he was triggered. Because that's when the darkness comes in, right? When you're triggered. And I just looked into his eyes and I wouldn't stop looking at him. He said, turn around. And I wouldn't, right? And I said nothing. I just looked into his eyes and I didn't turn around. And then he lifted his arm and went for the belt towards my side. And I kind of cringed in like this. And that belt touched me like a little feather, right? A tiny little feather. And I went, like he was murdering me, right? Looking into his eyes and like screamed like I was being murdered. And he was like, his face was just like, oh my God. And he walked away. So it's like all these things. How come it happened to my brother and sister, but it didn't happen to me? Because I challenged. I said no and all these things, right? As a little kid. I was in one of those homes with one of my cousins whose dad or stepdad was sexually abusing her. I was in that home. as little toddlers, 4 or 5-year-olds. And when that man walked in drunk, right, and started crawling into our bed, because I was sharing the bed with my cousin, I sat up and I looked at him. I just looked into his eyes and he looked at me. And again, he's like looking at my cousin, looking at me, and eventually he walked away. So how come that didn't happen? Yeah? It's because even as a kid, a tiny little child, if you know you have that energy that you don't have to be a victim, that you actually do have power here on earth, if the information comes in for you not to become that victim. And yes, you can share that with other children. You know, it's like, I know, but we think, oh, little children, they're gonna be victims. And then we empower that victimhood. Yeah? We empower that victimhood and we mustn't. We say, okay, that's not... Yeah, I will look at somebody sometimes and I said, I'm sorry to hear that happened to you. That shouldn't have happened to you. Now let's see how we can stop that happening again. Let's see how you're recreating that energy in your life right now. Oh, I'm always feeling bad about myself, or I'm always blaming others for things. Okay, let's work on that, right? Here's some tools, here's the class. And they can overcome it. Because there's no time for that anymore. We're at a pinch here, we're in a split. If you're a light worker, you need to light work. Not indulge in the negative stuff that happened to you through ignorance, through being babes in the woods, right? And if you take a bunch of kids that have been victimized and put them in a place and treat them like victims, they will continue perpetuating the victimhood energy or aggressor energy for the rest of their lives. If you grab those kids and you put them in an empowerment class, right? An empowerment class, then that stops. That stops.
I think there's something there because I do remember I've watched some shows, in different places of the world, and I can see a commonality in some areas. There's like areas with like a huge amount of degradation and darkness, and it's overwhelmingly dark. Mm-hmm. Ask the people who are there what's going on, why is it bad? It's
the government.
Always the government's fault.
Somebody else's fault, always.
It has nothing to do with them, and the road's crap because the government.
Yeah.
The economy's crap because the government. Whatever it is, it's the government. And the government in their case is their uncle, really. Probably. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like there was never a sense of empowerment, owner, like, why is it bad? Well, cause we like it like this. This is what we're used to, and this is this is our game. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a desire to change it. It's just a desire to blame someone else for it. It's like the victim.
Right.
Victimhood.
Yeah.
But I've also heard stories of places that they reclaimed their power back. Like that village in Mexico, remember? Mm-hmm. Where the women and the aunties and whatever, they were tired of things being the way they were, and they changed it, made it different. They took their power back and took the government back, and
vaguely remember that.
Some drug stuff, or I don't remember the details specifically, but I do remember hearing about that story where they basically claimed back their power. They weren't powerless to control.
Well, my sister's done that in Seville, right? She, I remember I have talked about the incident of the lady who couldn't put a paintbrush down, and then 6 months later she was painting a mural. That's what she taught them, right? But also, I never talked about where she put those murals. My sister would go to, because she worked for a government agency that was there to empower people, properly empower them, not treat them as victims. So she would go into a neighborhood and she would speak with the families and the mums and the grandmas and said, what's going on. So they would talk about the drug barons and the dealers in their neighborhood and says, okay, what corners What's the corners that they hang out at? That corner over there and that corner over there. And that's why she would ask permits from the municipality to make the murals in those corners. And they would. They would make these beautiful murals. And all the focus of attention would go into those corners.
Too much light, huh?
There was too much light.
To carry out the dark.
And they just couldn't come back. Those people could not come back to sell their drugs there. They just couldn't. Right? And if anybody tried to degrade the mural, you know, like they would in other places with graffiti, by drawing degraded things on people's faces, and you can imagine what, right?
Oh yeah, all the things.
Yeah. The moms and even the little kids would come out who had actually painted those murals, come out of their homes and say, "Get out of here. Don't you spoil my mural," because they owned it. It was theirs. They painted it. And like, I remember she said, my sister even then, she said, you know, that might stop the drug, whatever, cartels or the dealers for a few weeks. It was enough, right? For her, well, that was enough. But then she went back to one of those, like, I think it was 10 years later, and you couldn't recognize that neighborhood. It was beautiful. It had flowers and sitting spots, and there was no, like, dealers for blocks around it. Were they dealers before in those other areas? Yes, they were. But not in the area where she'd put the murals. It's almost like that joint community light that went on those walls dispelled that darkness from the street, that actual street or that actual plaza.
Sort of removed some consent, and it also removed the environment
victimhood.
And the victimhood of it.
Yeah. The people stopped blaming others.
Right?
They stopped blaming others. They stopped blaming the cops for not being there in that corner. They stopped blaming the government for not dealing with whatever's, right? Because, okay, they took responsibility. This is our street. This is our corner. This is our mural. It's ours and nobody's going to touch it. See, that's the difference.
Yes. Which is like in your article, your essay, you were shown a book, a manual for controlling the masses. It's kind of like it's kind of like the manual for light workers. Like
dark workers, you mean?
No, the light workers manual. Like
what?
Put a community mural on the corner.
Oh, that one, yeah.
That would be the light workers
it is,
manual.
would. Yeah.
That might be a good book to write, light workers
But you
manual.
don't do it for them.
Of course
you
not.
organize them.
If you go and do that for them,
nobody cares.
Then it's the same difference. It's
It
like,
doesn't.
oh yeah, it's pretty for a week, but look, they're just going to ruin it.
Yeah.
And that'll be
they have to do it.
Yeah.
They have to do it.
Well, I totally get it, but I'm saying that should be in the
light workers
manual, right? Maybe we need to write that.
But the number one thing I would put in the light workers manual would be stop indulging in dark things in your life, like drama, guilt, blame, anger, depression, fear. Stop indulging in those things. You're an adult now. You don't have an excuse that a little innocent kid has, okay? You're not that little innocent kid anymore. You're not. So you do not have any excuses to continue indulging in that stuff. You don't.
Especially if you're a light being, came here to be a light worker.
Exactly. So it's like inside of yourself is what you are projecting out into the universe. So if you're indulging in negative stuff, that is what you're projecting out. Guess what? In those moments, you're being a dark worker. You're feeding the dark. Empowering the dark. Because how can I police myself all the time? You know,
it's so hard.
Like, so hard.
Everything I do is wrong. I'm so bad.
There goes the guilt.
Yes.
Guilt actually empowers the dark, right?
Good job. Hey, dark worker. You get your dark worker badge.
Yeah.
What does a dark worker badge look like on a light worker?
The same as a dark worker.
Dark worker badge, honey. Light workers do, light worker badge might be like
Oh,
a
sparkly.
little animated, sparkly thing with pretty smells.
Yeah. Probably a
Dark
lump
worker
of
badge.
poop.
Lump of poop.
Yeah.
So, if you want a lump of poop for a
Yeah.
badge, there you go. Just continue.
Continue on.
Continue
Okay.
on as you are. So tell me about this not dark worker manual, the manual to control the masses. Yes. I think I saw that also, or heard of it at least.
It used to be everywhere in the 70s. Like you could buy it in every single bookstore. It was amazing. It was just released and you could buy a copy of it anywhere.
Did it have a lot of the things like that one fellow who wrote the book, who worked in the World Bank, right? How to control countries with the World Bank money,
Was that Freeman?
Confessions of a economic hitman.
Oh, yeah. No, it wasn't like that. No.
What was in the book that you're talking about?
It was literally the methodology that can be used to control the masses through fear and terror.
So give me some tips.
Well, I just talked about that. It's like in my essay, I explained that one of the things that the manual said is you capture part of the population, right? People who you might think do not consent to what's happening. Maybe some intellectuals, maybe some artists, maybe famous people, right? And you put them in concentration camps, torture them until they're cracked in their minds, they're totally traumatized, PTSD'd, and broken. You release them back into the population. And the people see this broken person who's continuously telling their story of what happened to them. And that's enough to keep those other people compliant.
They don't want to risk that.
No.
For nothing.
No.
Makes sense. Only one problem with that methodology.
What?
You gotta do the torturing part.
Well, that's a dark worker's job, isn't it?
Okay. So do light workers have an equivalent method for controlling the masses?
This whole point of the light workers that you self-control, you don't control others.
So the answer is no.
The answer is stop indulging in negative stuff. Control yourself.
It's kind of funny in a way because the light workers think they have to control what everybody else is doing in order for light to happen, right?
And they don't control themselves.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, how do I stop them from doing X, Y, Z? And I say, well, how many hours today have you spent indulging in negative thoughts?
All day.
Yeah, most of the day. Well, you do that first. Do that first. Then come to me asking about what you can do for others or how to stop others doing BS.
Yeah. So give me some examples of indulging in low frequencies.
Blaming others.
Let's be
blaming the government, blaming your spouse, blaming your friends, blaming another person for what you're feeling right now. Or thinking or experiencing. That's indulgent. Drama. Like, oh my God, X, Y, Z is happening and blah, 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 blah. And there's usually blame game there too in the drama.
So let's blame and blame and blame. Yeah. Blame creamed on top of blame toast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how about well, I know it's common for people to get together to talk at work. Uh-huh. And I've been at work before. Uh-huh. And it seems to me generally, not always, but pretty much always, that it'll start out with, how was your week or weekend or, whatever. Mm-hmm. And generally the stories go to something terrible that happened or whatever. Went out, we had a party, it was great fun, and then Todd showed up. You know what happened when Todd shows up? Oh my God, he got drank too much, he got in a fight with my husband, cops had to called. It was just, we had a great time. Right? or Oh, we moved into my new house and we're sitting there finally relaxed into watching a show, and I heard this pop in behind my couch, and then I heard water, and then an hour later there's an inch of water on the floor. Nobody knows how to turn the water off. It was a disaster. But the best thing is I met my neighbors. They're the nicest people, and they showed me how to turn the water off outside. So it's a good thing that happened.
They're the most interesting neighbors.
They're the most interesting neighbors.
I never knew they were living there.
If it hadn't been for the water busting and drowning my house, I would have never met them. Well, you might have tomorrow, but let's say, okay, fine.
If you're drama-based, if you're drama-based, that's the only way.
That's how it happens, right?
Yeah.
So it's like justifying
Drama and negative things.
and it's for a good reason, actually.
Yeah.
Because everybody comes together better in a disaster, honey.
There you go.
Have you heard that?
Yeah, I have. Your roosters are really
Roosters
going
are
for
agreeing
it.
with that.
So everything happens for a reason. Usually it's interpreted as everything happens for a good reason, which
Not
is
only
not
that,
actually true.
All bad things happen for a good reason, is what they mean.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't say, oh, I won $1 million and it happened for a good reason.
Right.
No, it's like, I got a flat tire and it's a good thing because it happened for a good reason. Now I got to meet this strange dude that stopped by and helped me fix my tire.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're all guilty of, what's the word? Sometimes making lemonade out of lemons, I guess is how they interpret it.
That's
But that's
what
not
you're
the
doing.
same, right?
No, that's what you're doing. But it's not like giving validation to the negative experiences you're having, right? Everything happens for a reason, but some of those reasons, especially if you're living your life unconsciously, are very bad for you and very negative for you. And they're good for another person or another being or an organization or the government or whatever, but not for you.
So it's, I guess, okay to just say, yeah, sometimes bad things happen. They aren't good.
Yeah.
I mean,
sometimes
I'm
bad things happen because of bad reasons.
I'm a powerful and resilient person, and a bad thing happened, and it didn't knock me off my perch. I mean, I learned probably maybe not trust this
perch,
but it wasn't necessarily a good thing.
No.
But I'm still a good person. Right?
You're still trying to weave in the good thing here, honey.
It's bad things can happen sometimes.
Yeah.
But not all of them are for good reasons.
No.
Can any bad things happen for a good reason?
No.
How about stopping you from doing stupid shit? And you won't listen. So finally your car breaks.
Like I said, when you're unconscious, I'm not
or
interested
you're not
in you.
listening.
I'm not interested in you if you want to continue being unconscious. And not becoming aware and conscious of what you're doing and the decisions you're making in life. If you're not prepared for that, then I'm not interested in you.
Fine, okay, but just sometimes you're like busy in your other space of your mind. And you can't,
busy with what? Negative stuff?
No, you're trying to build...
Indulging in whatever the government's doing right now?
A new recipe for ambrosia, and the last recipe of ambrosia didn't have enough organic ingredients. So you're like focused on the organic stuff to go in my ambrosia.
Okay.
And you're not looking, like paying attention to things that are happening. And it turns out that ambrosia, that your recipe you're thinking about, even though you're all organic ambrosia, you got like toxic ambrosia ingredients. And so before you make it to the store, you get 4 flat tires and you can't make it to the store. And then you're trying to fix your tires and you say, oh, forget about the stupid ambrosia thing.
Okay, I have seen those. I have seen those situations.
You look it up and you find, oh, it's those cherries. They said they were organic, but they're actually from China and they're lying. And they got some...
No offense to all Chinese people listening to this podcast. Anyways.
But I'm just saying, for instance, right? So that was a bad thing happened for a good reason.
No, I have seen those. I've seen situations where a person is trying to push something through.
Push their whatever.
Yeah, what they want to do is through, and it like break after break after break after break, and they push and push and push, and more breaks and more breaks and more breaks, and if they just paused and looked or checked with others, they would see that they shouldn't be doing that. I have seen that.
And that's...
Because negativity disables. Negativity stops you. And sometimes that stop is, occasionally, because you're hard-headed and you're diving into something negative. But sometimes it's just to break you.
Yeah.
Right?
But the point is that...
It's if you, but if you check with others, if you don't try to lone wolf it and try to figure out everything on your own, then often you'll get the insights that will show you, oh my gosh, all those things trying to stop me was because that was a bad thing to do.
Right. And we're using this bad things happen in a very like
Theoretical way
that encompasses every experience that you could label bad, right?
Yes.
And we're more specifically about the dark
torture,
bad. Dark
fear,
bad things don't have
abuse.
it for good reasons.
No.
On my way to the store to get the wrong organic cherries, I didn't get shot by a guy and raped.
Right.
To stop me.
No.
And that wasn't a good thing.
No.
That's a different kind of bad, okay?
Exactly.
Just wanted to be clear about
yes.
that. We could get to the lightworker justifications, well, 4 flat tires is so bad. It's like, that's not bad.
No.
That's not great.
No.
But it's not bad.
Exactly.
Okay, I just wanted to make things real for a moment,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Make it real.
Make it real.
Yeah.
Stop being blinded by the dark.
Yes, stop it already. I'm so frustrated with people getting blinded by the dark. So, lift your chin, remove the blindfold, and open your eyes. Okay? It's not complicated. Really, it isn't. It's simple. And I have some tools that will help you. I have
Share
a boom
your
boom
tools.
light.
Oh, the light booms, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to demonstrate it real quick?
So you get a crystal. You can have a
have one?
crystal. Right. Oh, this is a giant. This one a bit smaller. Can use this one.
Okay.
And if you have a piece of wood, it works better. Like if you put it against the wood and you hold them together, or you can tape it up with wood, and then you bang this crystal on the wood, like boom, boom. And as you bang it, you imagine this massive light, boom, going out, right? Boom. Right? It's not your light, it's light. Okay? It's not your energy, it is energy. Right? From source, boom, light. Boom, boom. And I've used it in emergencies. I've used it when I've gone into like total tailspins of anger and frustration. I've used it when there's negative things happening around me. Right? I've used it in many, many different situations, and it's magical. It's amazing. It really works. And if you do 20 minutes a day of these, like, amazing. It literally has changed people's lives.
Literally, yep, I've seen it.
And there's a YouTube in my essay. You're going to find a link to the YouTube where I explain it a little bit more.
Okay. Then
you can also deal with your fears and stress. So there's the fear processing exercise, which is in processyourfear.com. Will get you to the fear processing exercise. Use that. And also, it's completely free. It's all written out with all the instructions. You can also go to the stress relief exercise, which is at stressreliefexercise.com. You use those every day on yourself, and you're going to start getting some really good results. Don't just listen. The thing is not going to do anything. If you follow the instructions and do what the instructions tell you to do, that's when it works.
Got it.
Okay, so those are some of the tools. But yeah, it's like, yeah, stop validating and being blinded by the dark, okay? And if you're feeling energies of frustration, anger, fear, stress, despondency, depression, sadness, suffering, PTSD, all these energies you're feeding the dark paradigm with. And you do have power over these feelings. And anybody who tells you cannot be cured of these things is disempowering you and disabling you. Because you can overcome all these things. And you can step out of those. Guaranteed.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty good to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I want to remind people that despite the fact that this is a WooForThought, we do have an after party.
Mm-hmm.
We have an after party set up with our other podcast called Drive Into the Res.
Yes.
But the after party will also go with the WooForThought, because you know
Right.
the week we do this, we don't do that one.
Right.
So we'll still have an after party.
Yes.
So if you're interested in chatting about this,
Yep.
look up the link. Probably be in the podcast notes. Probably if you look for Driving to the Res, our other podcast, you'll be able to find a link there. But I'm sure you can figure it out. I feel like you're a powerful light worker. You can figure out how to find our after party.
Yeah. And that's a way also opportunity for you to support our work. So
Yeah, that too, if you like.
Yeah.
I think that's a great plan.
$8 a month.
Sweet. Okay. Thanks for everything.
See you next time.